GALP.
I've got a lot of questions. Who at Koei is secretly a furry? And does liking Warriors All Stars make you a furry? Find out the answers to all of this and more on this episode of GALP. Before we get into that, let's shout out our sponsors, Pancrate, Sugoima, Crunchyroll, and J-List. For you new folks, GALP is a weekly gaming discussion podcast under the GALP Podcast Network. We talk about all sorts of games from big AAA titles, but our forte is Japanese games, especially Musou, so expect that a lot. We can be found anywhere where you listen to podcasts, including Spotify, Amazon Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, and now on YouTube. Whilst you're there, be sure to give us a 5-star review, and remember, if you want to join in on the fun, then follow us on all of our socials, Twitter, TikTok, Insta, at GALP Podcasts. If you like what we do here on GALP, please spread the word. Feel free to join our Patreon, starting at £5 a month for early access and ad-free content, as well as joining our Discord, getalifepodcast.com/Discord. We'd really appreciate it. Now that the clickbait is out of the way, I'm not going to be talking about the furries anymore. Let's talk about Warriors All Stars, an often forgotten game in the Musou series. Warriors All Stars, otherwise known as Musou Stars in Japan, is a hack and slash game featuring fan favorites from all Koei Tecmo games, even the really obscure ones. Basically, it's Warriors Orochi with a reduced roster. This game got a multi-platform release, so it was released on the PC and PS4, as well as the PS Vita in Japan only. The other platforms got the release September 1st in Europe and 29th of August in the US 2017. This game, much like Dynasty Warriors Godseekers, was a new Musou IP created for an anniversary, in this case 20th anniversary of the development studio Omega Force. Initially, while reviewing this game 7 years ago, I'd felt that Musou Stars was a blatant cash grab for Koei, and although in some ways it is, it's much more than that. The game is supposed to be a spiritual successor to Warriors Orochi series in the sense that it's an amalgamation of all of these different Koei IP, but it's a fully fledged game with new gameplay mechanics, new movesets, new characters. And personally, after playing games like Warriors Orochi 3, this IP felt like it was the right move for Koei. Instead, after Dynasty Warriors 9's mixed reactions at launch, we ended up with Warriors Orochi 4 as a sort of break glass in a case of emergency release. And it felt a bit uninspired and rushed. I would have much preferred an All-Stars 2 and for Koei to continue to support this series. Why am I saying this? Well, I felt that Warriors Orochi 3 was, the perfect Musou game. It had a lot of content and it still holds up to this day. It was a game that the community, as well as the community managers at the time for Koei Europe and US, Chin and Eric, fought so hard to bring over. It brought together a fragmented community, especially after the Koei and Tecmo merger. And Orochi 4 didn't feel like that. It didn't feel well thought out. It had a lot of features missing at launch, some characters missing as well. And it was just a mess filled with menus. It didn't feel like a Musou love letter to the fans. However, All Stars does. It's a game that I think Koei Tecmo really enjoyed developing. Yes, it did reuse a lot of animations and assets and things like that. But remember, they had to create new movesets for many characters who have never appeared in Musou games before. Nobunaga, Oda, Oka, Horo, Togitsugu from Tokiden, Kasumi, Honoka, Mari Rose from DOA 5, Lagrina, Millennia from Deception series, Ryu Hayabusa Ayane from Ninja Gaiden, William from Neo, Placha and Sophie from the Atelier series, Arnes and Christophorus from Knights of Azure, Hajime Arima and Darius from Haruka Naru Taki no Naka de. Sorry, I don't know if I pronounced that properly in Japanese. They translated it as Haruka Beyond the Stream of Time. This is a Ruby Party title that's been going on for many, many years, and in fact, it's the first reference to Ruby Party that we've seen in a worldwide release before Token Rambo. We've even got some obscure characters like Rio, who I believe had a sort of casino game, like a blackjack game, and Opuna. Opuna was a game that was released by Koei on the Nintendo Wii. I've never played it, so I don't really know what it is about, but it's just weird looking. The gameplay itself is very reminiscent of Dynasty Warriors 5, or indeed Dynasty Warriors Gundam Reborn and the Empires games due to its base system. I'd say closer to Gundam Reborn than to Empires because Empires actually has some level of strategy to it. In summary, your goal for most missions is to capture the main camp with a series of submissions, which can include taking a supply base, an attack base, etc., defeating messengers, stuff like that. Just very basic, bog standard Musou stuff. Nothing really groundbreaking. But if it ain't broke, don't fix it. The game follows 3 characters fighting for the throne of their land. When an old king died, he left no successor, so as a result, the land started to die, and the heroes from a lot of Koei Tecmo games were summoned to save the day. Although the idea is basically Dynasty Warriors, the 3 kingdoms, right, in a nutshell, it's more interesting than the good versus evil storylines that we've been grown accustomed to in the Musou Orochi series. The sort of storyline that we have after Orochi 3, where you think, oh, look, it's a perfect place to end this series. How are they going to bring Orochi back, etc.? And then they kind of came out of nowhere with Orochi 4 and Zeus. We'll do an Orochi 4 episode kind of comparing Orochi 4 to Orochi 3 and where I think it kind of went wrong. Or if you guys want, we can bring a guest on to kind of discuss that a bit more. The game introduces new game mechanics, including Musou Rush, which is a modified version of Musou Rage from the Spirit of Sanada game. During Rush, you are invincible for a period of 25 seconds. However, the time increases depending on the number of enemies defeated. You're cheered on by your own teammates and the spotlight is literally placed on you. You basically become the star. It's a stage almost, as you defeat unlimited enemies for additional XP and gold. And I really do love that, because sometimes there's not enough enemies spawning in Musou in general. So this basically gives you free reign to do what you want, to kind of action the moves that you want to do. And it's a bit of fun. It's really just nice to see, you know? So I do really like that. Although weapon switching does return in this game in a very bare bones fashion. I kind of refer to this as weapon switching, but it's more like character switching as well. But you're granted special ability cards, which are unique to characters chosen. And then the card system is basically taken directly from games like Tokiden and Knights of Azure. I'd say more so Knights of Azure, right, where you press R1 and then one of the face buttons, and then you can basically do a special attack. Each character within your team will fight side by side to perform a special attack when the card is activated. However, if you press the D-pad, you can switch to one of 4 additional characters in your party for a set period of time. It's basically weapon switching and character switching, but not what Orochi fans are accustomed to, right? Because your character can't really do much out of that, and it's very tight. So you have to kind of take into consideration the character that you're going to bring in as your main character is the one that you want to make sure is fully leveled up, is the one that you're basically going to rely on. It's a good mix, I'd say, as well, because kind of in Orochi games, sometimes I find that I'm relying too heavily on one character rather than another. So those characters kind of play a little bit of a support role. You're not fully relying on them, but if you want to switch it up to change a moveset or whatever quickly, then you can, which is kind of nice actually, and I do prefer that system rather than the Orochi system. 5 characters in total might seem like a bit much, but because of this system it kind of dumbs those characters down a bit. It's effectively basically playing as one character and you just have 4 supports. The system in general with the cards is okay, however I'm not really a fan of cycling through pages of special attacks mid-battle. I don't see why cards can't be activated by pressing the touchpad, considering it's not used for anything in this game. I also find that maps aren't well balanced for slower characters. These maps are often Samurai Warriors maps, which are smaller. On occasion, you'll encounter a Dynasty Warriors map, which isn't an issue if your character is from Samurai Warriors, as they're able to hyper attack their way through at great speeds. The game doesn't have horses, so I kind of feel that increasing the speed of characters would have gone a very long way. It would have made the game a lot more fluid. That being said, we're going to go on an ad break. When we return, we're going to continue talking about the game and how I feel like it is truly a love letter for the Musou fans. So we'll see you guys in a moment. Patreon. Patreon.com/GAL podcasts. Be sure to join our Patreon for access to episodes early. You will get verbal shout outs during podcast mid-rolls like this one, access to our GAL only Discord, as well as podcast pilot previews. There are 3 tiers. There's a £3 a month tier, there's a £5 a month, and you get everything if you get that £10 a month tier. We really would love for you guys to join. It's all right if you don't. It does help out the show. It does help us run the lights on the podcast as well. So we really do appreciate it, even if you can. And even if you can't join our Patreon, make sure that you guys give the show a 5-star rating, as well as sharing it on all your social platforms, sharing it with your friends, sharing it with your aunties, sharing it with your grandma. Why not? Enjoy the podcast, share it around. It helps us sort of get further up in the algorithm and actually be able to run more ads, because we get more opportunities that way. So thank you for supporting the show, guys. Whether or not you want to subscribe on Patreon, we love you all the same. Anyway, back onto the ads. Crunchyroll. This episode of the podcast is brought to you by Crunchyroll, longtime sponsor. You can go to getalifepodcast.com/Crunchyroll. Once again, that's getalifepodcast.com/Crunchyroll for a 14-day free trial of Crunchyroll Premium. What does that mean? It means you get ad-free anime with the largest anime selection across any platform. You can watch on your PlayStation 5, Xbox, Amazon Fire Stick, you name it. That is the entire Crunchyroll library ad-free. Watch new episodes shortly after they come out in Japan. Stream on 4 devices at a time. Offline viewing for only £60 a year. Amazing. Go to getalifepodcast.com/Crunchyroll. That's getalifepodcast.com/Crunchyroll. Thank you, Crunchyroll, for sponsoring this episode of the podcast. J-List. getalifepodcast.com/J-List. That's getalifepodcast.com/J-List. Use the code GAL for
5%
off anything at J-List, and that includes everything that J-List and J-Box has to offer. So that's gifts, calendars, books and magazines, manga and doujins, anime figures, apparel and cosplay, games and anime, otaku and ecchi goods as well, guys. So go to J-List, that's jlist.com, check what they have to offer and buy it there. They really have a good selection of everything. Currently at the moment, J-List is offering special orders and price matching, which means you can actually request from J-List any specific items that you want, and they can actually go and get it for you from Japan. That's actually how J-List originally started, if I'm not mistaken. We did an episode with Peter Payne, the founder of J-List, so we're actually really happy to have the sponsorship going on like we did before. They also do price matches. There is information on their website. Go to jlist.com and you can find it on their blog. Remember, once again, that's getalifepodcast.com/J-List and use the code GAL for
5%
off on everything on the website. Thank you, J-List, for sponsoring this episode of the podcast. Friendly reminder, guys, to join us on our Discord, getalifepodcast.com/Discord. We have all this amazing stuff that's going on at the moment. Dedicated anime channels, dedicated gaming channels, as well as places for you guys to share your content as well. We love to spread that around, so make sure that you join our Discord. That's getalifepodcast.com/Discord, as well as sharing the podcast on whatever platform you're using. If you're using Spotify, make sure that you guys are engaging with our Q&As and our polls and just giving us a 5-star review on any podcast platform that you guys are listening to. There should also be a new feature if you are using Anchor and Spotify in general. You can send us an audio note and we'll listen to it on the podcast, and it's a great way for you guys to get directly engaged with us, which is always awesome, as well as checking us out on X at Gal Podcast, as well as on Instagram, once again at Gal Podcast, and on TikTok at Gal Podcasts. Okay, welcome back from the ads. Talking about Musou All-Stars. After battle, you return to the most beautiful camp area, which is a game feature that was inspired from Dynasty Warriors 7, 8, even Orochi 3. Orochi 3 had it in a very small sense, and it did look quite nice. But this is amazing because you've got like this wonderful crater in the middle, and you've got all of these different shops and things like that. They don't mean as much compared to Orochi 3, but it just looks fantastic. I prefer it so much to just standard menus. Koei easily could have done this, considering this is possibly considered a budget title. It makes the game feel alive. You can walk around to see NPCs training or running laps around the camp, or casually you might see Lubu playing DOA, or a character randomly looking at a barrel. I believe that is a Atelier reference, actually. There is so many Easter eggs to gush over, you know, as a Musou fan, as a DOA fan, as a fan of any Koei Tecmo game. However, I would have liked to have seen a little bit more. For example, I did mention Lubu playing DOA, right? There are some games like the Yakuza series that allow you to interact and play with the arcade machines in the games, right? Having older titles as mini games. I would have loved to have seen that in this game. You know, being able to play something like DOA 1 or DOA 2, the original Dynasty Warriors as a fighting game, any Ninja Gaiden game on the NES or the SNES. Speaking of the onsen, it doesn't really do much for you other than the occasional character interaction and maybe a bond level up. It would have made more sense to keep the onsen as a paid feature where you pay in-game currency, in this case gold coins, and get a stat boost before battle, or to pay to invite a character in your party to level up their bonds with you. The game also uses this card system. I did mention it in the previous part before the break, which is basically if weapon fusion and skills got together and had a baby. It's a nice system, but it is very overwhelming. You assign cards to your playable characters to increase stats like attack and assign skills. As there is no unlockable weapons in the game, everyone fights with their base weapons, which makes sense because you have characters from series that don't use weapons, like the DOA characters, Honoka and Mari Rose, and for some reason Kasumi as well. Or they'll have varying weapon systems, like characters from Samurai Warriors and Dynasty Warriors. So this choice makes a lot of sense. The training system from Warriors Orochi also returns, where you can trade gold for XP. There isn't a promotional prestige system, however, and there is a level cap of 50, which is reasonable. It's worth noting that your moveset increases as you level up. The overworld is a new thing and well welcomed into the Musou series. Once you're done with the camp, you are taken to a world map in which you can select missions to progress the story, as well as side stories to unlock other characters, items, materials, etc. As well as battles that may pop up randomly. These are often timed and generated by the game, which is fantastic in terms about the sheer content this game offers. Unfortunately, this game isn't the best for replayability. Koei added multiple endings to this game, which should make it a fantastic game to go in and unlock all the endings, and it should be great for replayability. But there is no real indication of what is the right path. You often have your endings dedicated by the characters you have strong bonds with. For example, while playing through Natori E's story, I got a great bond with Ayane, and therefore I ended up getting a bad ending for the game because of the mission that I selected. There is no free mode in this game, which is unfortunate. I would have loved to have seen one to replay through the battles without starting the game from scratch. And that's another thing. There is no new game plus. Once you start a new Musou mode, once you start a new campaign, story mode, or whatever you want to call it, everything gets reduced back to 0. All of your levels get reduced back to 0. You don't get to carry over any cards, none of that. Even your characters, you have to unlock them again, and I really think that's a bit annoying. So I really would love it if it was possible to have a free mode and a new game plus option, and that's something that Koei easily could have implemented within a day one patch, or even a patch 6 months down the line. As this game is called Warriors All-Stars, characters were chosen through character polls, including DLC characters in Japan. As this is a localization, character polls in the West didn't contribute to the game's characters at all, unfortunately. You may have noticed also that this game has 30 playable characters, which may seem disappointing in comparison to Warriors Orochi 3's 145 playable characters. However, it's good to mention that this game is indeed different from the Orochi series. Having limited roster forces you to mix up who is in your team and experience characters from games you may have not played before. However, there are actually 29 playable characters. I did say 30, but Opuna is not playable from the start and is very difficult to unlock in this game. There is no way to actually know that. I had to search up online. The way to get Opuna is either to, have this pre-order bonus DLC or pay outright for Opuna. I think it's like £3-4 maybe, or to complete every story mode in the game and get a true ending for each group of characters. So that's the Samurai Warriors characters, your Dynasty Warriors, your Tokiden, etc. So you have to complete the main stories in the game so that you can unlock Opuna. So you have to go through the same story number of times to unlock one character, which I think is a bit annoying. This character has no interaction with other characters at all and seems to be an afterthought. So I feel that boasting 30 playable characters is a little bit of a modified truth. In the grand scheme of things, it doesn't really mean anything. But, it's a DLC character. Beside Opuna, characters use their systems from their respective teams. So 3 Samurai Warriors characters can use hyper attacks, although hyper attacks aren't fully fledged though, and the moveset isn't available to use fully. It's hard to explain. I did notice this as playing as Mitsunari Ishida, right? Half of the hyper attack moveset is removed, and it isn't as fast as it was in Samurai Warriors, which makes sense. However, and it's not as powerful as well. So it's like, is it worth it? The Musos in this game are sort of bastardized as well. You don't have a full Musou. It's basically Dynasty Warriors 8 style of Musou, in which it's a Musou attack, but you don't get to elongate it. So I think the way that they've done it was they took the Samurai Warriors for Musou and took the little flashy bit at the end and kind of made that as their Musou, which I don't mind, but considering Orochi 3 and even Orochi 4 just kept that as is, I kind of felt like they could have kept that system there as it was. They didn't really need to change that bit. Dynasty Warriors characters have their move sets modified as well, because there are some characters that can't be grabbed. So for example, Ubu would make some grab attacks, and also there are some characters you can't grab, like for example Punis, meaning Musou attacks and EX attacks have changed in this game. Characters from the DOA and Ninja Gaiden series all have new movesets. They're not cloned from Orochi 3, which I am a little bit worried about, because the Orochi 3 movesets for all of these characters were fantastic, so I don't understand why they moved them. Hayabusa isn't as fast as he is in Orochi 3. He has a completely new moveset, but some of these changes make no sense. I understand why Mary Rose uses no weapons, but surely Kasumi, being a ninja, should be able to use her swords in combination with hand-to-hand combat, similar to Ayane or Hayabusa. I think they've kind of put Kasumi in a box because she is your DOA character, but then it kind of makes me think, okay, so why can't you keep Ayane, Kasumi and Hayabusa in one sort of game franchise? I know Kasumi makes more appearances in DOA, but she is technically in Ninja Gaiden. I believe she is in Ninja Gaiden 3, but you could have grouped them together and given us another DOA character. I don't know who they could have given us, to be fair. I'm thinking maybe some male character, maybe Hayate. It would have been nice, because obviously we get like interactions between all three of the ninja characters along with Hayate. I think would be really cool. Characters who are new to Musou games are a complete delight to play, such as William from Nioh, or indeed Arnis from Knights of Azure. That's another one I want to talk about. I do want to cover an episode on Knights of Azure, because I played the first one and I really did like it. I haven't played the second one yet. These characters are somewhat made for hack and slash games. If you've ever played Knights of Azure, you can understand where I'm coming from. William as well, being from a Souls-like game, the combat just makes sense. And I think same with a lot of other characters. I think they did a great job with the Atelier characters, as well as the Tokiden characters are just fantastic to play as. For those that don't know, this game also featured Zhao Kang from Dynasty Warriors 9, and it was intended to be a teaser for people to experience his moveset and his design before Dynasty Warriors 9's release. Which makes me think, at the time of this game's release, Dynasty Warriors 9 was probably going to be a completely different game from what we saw, as Zhao Kang's moveset did play a lot like previous Dynasty Warriors games. He has an EX attack, he has a proper Musou attack. This moveset or combat system is not available in Dynasty Warriors 9, so it makes me think, was Dynasty Warriors 9 supposed to be similar to Dynasty Warriors 8? And they decided to change it last minute? That could explain why the open world felt very bland and very lifeless. Anyway, it got us hyped for that game, but it also added to the sheer disappointment of Dynasty Warriors 9. Part of me wants to see early Dynasty Warriors 9 builds dated at the time of the Warriors All-Star release. The audio in this game is absolutely fantastic. It has a lot of remixes, kind of like the Orochi 4's orchestral remixes, as well as guitar remixes, which play depending on the course of battle. We even see tracks from Warriors Orochi return as well, although they're not mentioned as Warriors Orochi specific tracks. I would have liked to see this game be fully voiced. Only in-battle events are voiced and certain cutscenes, but pre and post-battle events aren't, which is a big shame considering most of the story is told during these times. And considering they have such a small roster, we could have seen a fully voiced game on this one. It's also nice to mention that Koei and their memes are just impeccable. I love it. They've embedded memes into trophies and achievements to make references to Smash Mouth's All-Star from the Shrek films. I was thinking, who made that decision? That's just hilarious. I just want to GG to the person that did that at Koei. I really do think that this is a Musou game that a lot of people have forgotten about or have slept on a little bit. There was some hype initially, and I know some people had issues with this game in terms of game-breaking glitches and haven't returned since. I know Jacob, for example, upon the game's release, he had his game saves deleted due to a glitch, but these have been fixed and this game is often on sale, so be sure to pick it up when you can. on Steam or on the PS4. Personally, I do want to see Koei continue the series. At this point, we have a lot of Musou fatigue, especially due to Warriors Orochi 4 and Dynasty Warriors 9, and we need a title with a stripped down roster like this to get back into the true meaning of Musou and to allow people to actually have fun with it again. I can see Koei Tecmo using this game as a way to bring back the community together with worldwide polls and community events to decide on which characters will appear in the game. I would see this as a great community outreach program, right? Koei could even have exclusive characters per platform, a la Soul Calibur, possibly having Link and Zelda as playable characters for the Switch version, or Kratos and Eve from Stellar Blade for the PlayStation version. Imagine Kratos for a moment in the Musou game interacting with other characters. That would be pretty cool. We could even see characters from Blue Reflection, characters from Atelier return like Ryza, characters from even Monster Rancher make an appearance. There is a lot more ideas floating around, especially online. So if you guys want to see a fantasy Musou draft for Warriors All-Stars 2, let me know and we can get that arranged, because there are so much we can go down into in terms of what ifs, right? What if there is a Musou All-Stars 2? What if there's a Dynasty Warriors 10? We can do a bunch of episodes like that. So if you guys want to see that, please let me know and we'll get that done as soon as possible. Big thanks to our sponsors once again, Japan Crate, Sugoi Mart, Crunchyroll and J-List, as well as big thanks to our patrons. Big thanks to you guys for listening as well. As always, you can check us out on our socials at GALP Podcast. Be sure to join our Discord if you guys want to join in on the fun and on the discussions, and see you guys next time.